Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Eric Summerer. Welcome to At the Table, a show about the people who play board games. Our guest at the table today has been a game reviewer for over a decade and has produced over 1,800 videos on his Game Boy Geek channel. He's also an accomplished saxophonist and can be seen playing the sax at live events. Please welcome Mr. Dan King. Hi, Dan.
Eric and Tom, and I've also put very many videos on the Dice Tower as well, right? Back
Absolutely.
In the old days.
You get the alumni or alumnus designation as well as a former contributor on the Dice Tower.
You've given me an idea of making an alumni page.
Really?
Mm.
I don't have that on the Dice Tower. We're redoing the website right now. That would not be a bad thing to put in.
Yeah.
You can
I think a lot of my videos are still linked on your website. I think if I go there and you can search by content creator, I think I'm still on there.
Yeah, so that way I can just press one button and the alumni are gone. It'd be really convenient.
You'll write me with one button.
Now, see, here's what happened with Dan is what brought Dan to my attention way back in the day was the fact that he reviewed like old school family games like Monopoly and Sorry and all that stuff. Shut the Box, a fantastic game. And I was like, yeah, you should come and review these older games on our channel. And he agreed. And then he started reviewing all the new hotness.
It's hard not to. There's only so many old games, right?
Yeah, eventually you run out.
That's right.
Or he was really sneaky and he snuck in with the classic games and then suddenly tried to steal your thunder. I get it.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he went to the new, now he's in the super new hotness. But I'm probably ruining all Eric's questions, just like I ruined the intro again. You know the problem, Eric, is I don't start any other show like
with a line. I know, and I knew that you'd have trouble with it. And I'm trying to challenge you and stretch your horizons by giving you a single line to say at the beginning of every episode.
Well, anyhow, folks, if you're listening to this in a podcast, just realize that we do record this live before a live studio, not a studio, but a live video audience. And those are the people that we sometimes take questions from. If you're watching this, realize that you can listen to this later on our podcast. So hooray for all of that. Enough about me. We're here to talk about Dan.
We are, and we should start from the very basis of
when were you born?
Yes. No, I actually want to know.
What's your social security number?
Origin story of the name. You are known as the Game Boy Geek, and I want to know what is so fascinating about the Nintendo Game Boy and why it has taken over your life.
First of all, Tom, you're only like 1 week older than me. Exactly. We were born almost the same time. So when I was a kid, pre-'89, when I grew up as a young boy in the 80s, this was before the Game Boy even existed, I would walk around the house with all the same types of family games you guys all probably played. You know, Liar's Dice and Catchphrase and, Taboo and Clue and all those, the nostalgic games. I would literally walk around the house with this game stacked from my hands up even above my eyes, and I'd be bumping into walls, and I would just go from person to person. Want to play a game? No. Want to play a game? No. Want to play a game? And I would just go to every person until someone finally said yes. And so back then, my dad just nicknamed me, "You're the Game Boy." And this was pre-Game Boy. So the fact that Nintendo had to jump up on my branding.
I don't think there's any way for us to prove this, though.
Let's call my dad right now. Let's go.
I feel like the Nintendo lawyers would trounce you on this. You know what? Game Boy. I was a kid. You said we're the same age. When I was a kid, I was playing the Game Boy.
Well, yeah, the Game Boy came out in '89, so that's what I'm saying. Is this happened?
See,
before that?
When the Game Boy came out, I didn't even know that. You've been tracking this.
I was the first. Yeah, and I was the first one on the block with the NES too. It was right around my birthday actually, because it was supposed to come up in September, but my birthday's at the end of August, and it came out like 1 week early at the Toys R Us near my house, and I was the first one on the block to get it. Oh man, the rest was history.
So somebody, I didn't actually put this on our document, but someone asked a question early on before the show if you've had people confused about the name and showing up looking for classic retro portable gaming review coverage on your channel, or if that just doesn't really happen.
It never happens, because I don't think anyone's like searching for that specifically. I think when my channel comes up, they're searching for board games. That's why it finds me, because it says, I reviewed whatever, Terraforming Mars, whatever, and then I'll come up. They're not going to look for or search for like a Mario game and I'm going to come up, because I specifically don't do electronic stuff purposely to keep that separated. So if I ever was trounced by the lawyers, someone could say he doesn't even do any electronic games.
Okay.
But I will say, when I'm searching for Dan's channel, lots of Game Boy ads and things pop up for sure.
Really? Okay. I don't know.
Or on Twitter when I was searching for you, trying to figure out your handle, I ended up with a lot of Game Boy.
I was going to be really clear. I didn't tell Eric to put that question in, but I approve of it. All right.
I'm sure you did, Tom.
I ask Eric. I don't tell him the questions to put in usually, except last week I did, but not this week.
Yes. So going back to your stack of games, walking around, where is this? Where in the country did you grow up with your stack of games, carrying it around? Where are you now?
So I grew up just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, where sports is a huge part of your life. Let's go Celtics tonight, Game 5, NBA Finals. Come on now. And so, I grew up there, stayed in Boston until I graduated college. I went to Northeast University for electrical engineering. And when I graduated that, I moved to sunny Arizona, Phoenix, where it's a nice dry heat, huh, Tom?
Don't get him started. We had this discussion before we even began the show. You're going to get him riled up about the
I'm cranky because of the lack of AC at my house right now. So I am addled.
I was done with the cold weather. You're still in Connecticut, right, Eric?
Yeah.
So you know how? Yeah, I just couldn't take the snow anymore. It's no fun.
So and it was right after college. You moved out to Arizona. You said, I'm done with the cold weather. And you've been there ever since. Yeah,
so my senior year, I knew I wanted to get out of there. My brother went to ASU, so we came out here and saw how nice and amazing the weather was, how affordable the housing was. It was just so different. So I was, looking for companies out here, and actually Motorola picked me up and recruited me right out of college. So like 6 months before I was graduated, I had a job and just waiting to graduate. So as soon as I graduated, I literally moved like the day after my graduation.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I've almost been here as long as I was in Boston. I think I was in Boston about 23 years. I've been here almost about the same now, which is why you don't hear my accent unless I say I parked the car. It comes out every once in a while, but for the most part, I've lost it because I've been here so long.
Well, that's just for parties that you bring that out.
That's right.
Park the car.
Oh, yeah.
So when have you always been like steeped in the hobby, even from the stack of games all through college, or did you leave it for a while and rediscover it?
Yeah, like most of us when we were kids, we played a lot of those games I just mentioned earlier, and games were a big part of my family's life. Every time we were doing something, we were playing games. My mom, my grandma. I used to remember my grandmother bought me one of those cool little, well, they weren't that cool, but they were those like leather briefcase backgammon sets when I was like 10, and I played the heck out of backgammon. I'd walk around with that. I got really into the Stratomatic baseball stuff, so I was a baseball nerd and playing a bunch of those old games. And I played all like the mass market stuff we talk about. Then I played a little bit like I found a hobby shop in the mall when I was little, and they had the back in the corner. They had some Avalon Hill games. I played some of those. But I've always played sort of games. But as I got older, I got busier with other things. I was always playing games, but maybe not quite as much. I was a sports nut. I was a jock. I played many sports. But the three I focused on the most over the course of my life has been like baseball, basketball, and football. In fact, I was the captain of my high school football team, believe it or not.
Wow.
So I was a jock. I was a diehard jock. I played sports, ate, drank, slept sports. When I was doing that, sure, we played games. Also, had to get a job while you're a teenager as well. And then when you get to college, you try to do engineering. There's not a lot of free time. That thing kicks your butt pretty badly. So I didn't play as much. I did play some Magic the Gathering during college. That's about right when it came out. When I moved, I left my cards with the person that got me into it because I'm like, well, I'm moving. I'm starting a new career. I'm not really going to know anybody out there. Why don't you just keep the cards that, we kind of bought. But it's always been a big part of things, playing card games with my grandparents. Oh, every time we saw them. So, yeah, like most people that are in this hobby.
You told us earlier people always refused you when you brought the games.
Well, the grandparents.
They wore them down eventually.
The immediate family always said no, especially my brothers, who actually still pretty much say no.
That is a problem with brothers. I will agree there. Mine are also pretty terrible in that regard, and I hope they're watching this.
I have my oldest brother is just a stickler, contrarian on purpose, just to get under my skin, where anytime we play anything, he'll always go, well, it's not better than this, and he'll name some old classic game, whatever. And it's just his thing. The only game he does love is Ticket to Ride. He does love that. But anything else I bring him, he'll be like, well, I'll just play Liar's Dice, or I'll just play this, or it's not as good as this.
Well, then Brer Rabbit him, Dan. Tell him it's not Brer Rabbit him. Don't throw me in that briar patch. Tell him it's worse. Tell him it's a terrible new game, and play it with him. Then he'll have to tell you it's good.
You're not going to like this as much as cribbage.
Deception,
we'll anyway.
It's the key to brotherly disputes.
So how many siblings are we talking about, Dan?
I've got 2 older brothers.
Older.
Yeah, they're 3 and 4 years older. So one would sit on me, and because they were both twice my weight, and one would sit on me, and the other one would punch me, and that's how I got good and fought in football, because you can learn how to fight when you're young, right? When you get beat up. Although Tom, were you the oldest in yours?
I was gentle and kind to my younger brothers. That needs to be stated clearly, since one of them is a police officer in a K-9 unit. So I've always thought greatly of him, and anything he might remember from his childhood is a lie.
So they used to beat the crap out of me. So the good thing was that I was faster than all of them. So I could run my way around them. But, man, if they caught me, or they somehow if they got me, I was dead, man. Like, I got beat up pretty bad.
So what position did you play in football?
Depending on the years. In the younger years, I was running back. As I got to high school and college, it was more wide receiver, because I wasn't as big.
So you were the more speedy roles on the team.
Yep, basketball, point guard, baseball, leadoff man, center field.
So we mentioned it at the top of the show, your musical talents. How did you get into your music hobby? It's sort of a separate offshoot. You haven't mentioned being interested in music or studying it as you grew up. Where did that come in?
So I always loved music. My dad my dad met my mom because he was a rock and roll, long hair hippie guy. My mom met him. She was 14 when they met. He was 16, and he was in a band. And so music's been around me. My grandfather played the organ. My dad played the guitar. And I've always loved music, but I never tried playing for some reason. But when I was in engineering school, I needed to take an elective. And I wanted to take something that was supposed to be super easy, because everything else is taking so much hard. And I took a jazz history class, and I actually did terrible in the class because I was too busy studying differential equations. So I actually did really bad. But towards the end of the class, the teacher was a saxophone player, and he said, at the end of the class, your final is, you're going to go to this concert. I'm going to be playing there, and I want you to write an essay on what you've learned in the history of jazz, how that transcended to what we did on stage. It was my first time seeing live jazz, and I was blown away. The next weekend, I went to a music store, knew nothing, and said, I want to rent a saxophone. Show me how to put it together. Show me what to do. Show me just the basics. I went home, started buying jazz CDs, going out to jazz clubs every weekend when I was done studying. And I did nothing but try to figure out what the masters were doing on the saxophone for like the first total year that I ever touched a saxophone. But it was every free minute. And like you said, that's when the games kind of took a little bit of back seat, because I was just going head first into the saxophone thing. So I did that fell in love with it. When I moved up to Arizona, I joined a band. I've joined a bunch of bands. I was in a 60-piece orchestra. I was in a 12-piece swing band. I had my own saxophone quartet at one point. But then I got into a band we ended up winning a national song competition put on by Spin Magazine. And we made it into Spin Magazine, and that put us on tour. So for about 2 to 3 years, I was working as an engineer in software by the day, and was at college campuses playing big events at night. And it was, oh my gosh, the most fun ever. And
wow.
So the band was it was a very positive, uplifting type of music that was a cross between a Dave Matthews Jam band and Black Eyed Peas, all with clean lyrics and positive, uplifting things for the youth. It was just, I loved it. It was just a great experience.
All right, one last question here then about the sax, and this is not a joke, but the best thing I've heard you play in the sax, hands down, was the theme song for the Secret Cabal Gaming podcast.
Oh, you just heard that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I heard it when it came out. It was just a few weeks ago. Yeah. He said, Dan's going to do a sax tribute, and I rolled my eyes while driving a car, and I was like, whatever. And then I heard you play it, and I was like, that's really cool. So I'm publicly asking Dan to do that for the Dice Tower at some point.
Oh, yeah, man, I'll do it. When I was on the Dice Tower cruise, which, by the way, if you've never been, you guys should go because it's awesome. when you were playing something, well, you were singing, and at the time Sam was playing guitar, and I was mad that I didn't bring my saxophone because I totally wanted to get on stage and play with you guys.
At some point, we will do well, I better not be careful, because last time I said this, we ended up doing a musical at Gen Con.
A musical episode.
So I got to be careful what I say here.
Yeah. Okay, no, I'll do a theme song for you, man. That's great. I've done some weird things for people with saxophones before, like did something for Rodney once. I did something for Rich. Why is his
Rich Summers? Here we go.
Rich Summers.
All right, well, let's jump to our discussion topic here. It's about saxophones. That's a lie.
Yes. No, we're going to talk about teaching games, because both you, Dan, and Tom have spent countless hours explaining games to people. So you would be considered an authority on how best to approach the concept of getting rules across to somebody. And I want to know, just straightforward, what is the most important thing to get across when you're teaching a new game to somebody?
That's not what you said. You said, what's the most important thing to consider?
Okay, what's the most important thing to consider?
No, because that's two different meanings.
Okay, what's the most important thing to consider when teaching a game to someone? We'll stick with my original wording.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to consider your audience, because I will teach
That's what I was
going to
say.
Ah, really? I'm glad I got it. I beat you to the punch, Tom. Yeah, it's looking at your audience. I will teach a game completely different to like next Saturday. I'm having a big game day here in the studio. We'll have probably 40 people, and probably half of them will be people that have not played a lot of games, if any, right? And the other half will be diehard gamers. And I will be teaching lots of people that don't play games often. And you got to teach them very differently. That audience doesn't want to know every rule. In fact, they want to know almost zero rules. They want to just get to the fun. So you've got to get to the fun quickest with them. You've got to give them just enough to get them going. Ticket to Ride, for example. I'm never, ever, ever going to tell them, hey, when 3 wilds come out, we're going to flush it and put new cards. I just do it the first time it happens. I don't even tell them, you can get more cards. When I'm giving their secret objectives, I might say, you know what, you got to keep a certain amount of these, depending on which version you're playing. You're going to get some later, but we'll go over that later. That's it. I won't even tell them they can get cards till they're 10, 12 turns in. I'm like, hey, by the way, now, that's a different way to think of teaching, completely different from the gamer. The gamers want to know every rule up front, and if you miss one little thing, they're like, oh, why didn't you tell me that? Well, with the gamer friends, I know that's a little bit different. Tom, what about you?
No, I was going to I had the exact same thing. That's why when Eric changed the wording, it threw off what I was going to say.
Your answers were ready.
Well, you said what the most important thing to consider, but I try to gauge the people up while I'm there. How much do I have to tell them? Dan's right, though. I know, honestly, I do that with almost every gamer. I don't care how diehard of a gamer is. You don't need to know every rule before we start. Yeah, especially if it doesn't matter to you. So let's say you're drawing out cards and those cards are different things. I'll say, you know what? I'm going to explain them as they're revealed, because there you go. And if halfway through, if I'd known that card was in a deck, then go play at a different table. Okay? Because it's not that big of a deal. This is a first game. It's a learning game. And I think, that just minimal explanation is a big deal.
It is. It's being a game teacher is interesting. It's as you know, Tom, right? It is a skill that you can get better at. It's something that after you've done it for so long, you do get much, much better at it. But it's also a curse, because I think much like Tom, I actually hate being taught games. In fact, I almost can't. If I know that I'm going to be taught a game, I will still go read the rules beforehand, because it just drives me crazy. I think you too, Tom, right?
I'm working on this, okay?
Oh man.
Z will start teaching me a
issues.
game and he'll hand me the rule book and I'll be like, no, I'll listen. But I hate every moment of it. I hate every moment, because no one teaches as good as I do in my head. I know it's not true. There are very good teachers out there. But
yes,
they're not.
I'm with you.
I'm like, what? But there are a lot of bad
teachers. Worse is watching someone teach a game that you do know how to teach. That's the impossible thing. You can't sit on your hands.
Then you chew gum. You chew gum or taffy. Do what it takes.
So how do you determine if you've made the wrong calculation? Let's say you're looking at a group of people and you're like, well, these folks, I think, need a little bit of detail. How do you know you're going too far into the weeds and that you really need to just get going right away?
Look at the body language. Look at the body language.
I'm showing my phone. If they pull their phone out.
Yeah, but you'll get the deer in headlights stare if you're going too deep pretty quick. You'll get that. What the heck is he talking about? I mean, it's pretty easy to pick up on those triggers.
Yeah, I think so. That happens a lot. But I think another thing, I always tell this when teaching, and this is even for me. If you're teaching me a game, you need to explain what we're doing. I really don't like when someone teaches a game chronologically.
No, it's the worst way to teach it. Some games lend itself to kind of doing that, but you're right, Tom. Always start with the end in mind and then work your way backwards. This is what we're trying to do. This is how you do it. Let's talk about how you do this. The hardest ones to teach, actually, the ones that doesn't work so well in. Point salads, felds. Those are the hardest ones to teach because it's like you kind of can't do that. You kind of can, but you really have to show because there's a million ways to get points, and then you got to actually get into the mechanisms pretty quickly. Those ones are actually the hardest ones to teach.
No, the hardest ones to teach are Lacerda games. But I know what you mean. I think you also, and this is going to sound really bad, you need to not overestimate people's intelligence. That sounds terrible, and I don't mean it that way, that people are dumb. But if you say, when you hand out cards, people are going to say, can I look at them? And I always think there is like 3 games in the world where you can't. But they don't know that, right? And so I need to realize that, and I'll be like, oh, you obviously understand how scoring track works. Maybe not. And I found that I've been burned before because I'm like, I don't need to explain almost anything. You all seem like very smart. You're a bunch of teachers that I teach with. You're brilliant people who, if your students would say, I don't know how to do it, you would yell at them. So I'm sure that you wouldn't do, I don't know how to do this in a board game. Oh, you do. Oh, no, hypocrites. Sorry, that actually happened in real life.
Reminding me of the viral video where the kids try and teach the dad how to make a peanut butter sandwich, and he misinterprets every rule because there's so much room for interpretation because they assume
right. I love that video.
How to do that, and you can easily run into that in a game teach if you assume. Well, I mean, there are some groups of people that you can just say this is a deck building game, so all that applies. And here's what you're trying to do, and here's how you collect points, and here's how you acquire cards. Go. And some groups of people will be like, oh, yeah, that's great.
Hey, Tom, do you get offended? Do you get offended when somebody asks to see the rule book? A, if they haven't asked you a question. B, they ask you a question, you tell them the answer, and then they ask to see the rule book.
They say, how do you do that?
Those are 2 completely different situations. I mean, do you get offended?
A little, but not. I mean, I get over it because I also do that. But I always wait 5 minutes so they don't think it's about the question I asked that I don't believe them on. I'll be like, oh, out of curiosity, I want to see the play testers and the credits. Can I see the rule book? Now, that being said, I think sometimes gamers are the hardest people to teach, especially when they fall into the category of just likeism, is what I call it. So I'll say, oh, you do these cards, you get to draw 2, just like Ticket to Ride. And then instantly they go, this game is just like Ticket to Ride. And they do. I'm like, no, that's not like Ticket to Ride. But you said it was like Ticket to Ride. No, I said that one thing was like it. Get Ticket to Ride out of your head. And it's especially worse when companies name their games like Valeria or Tiny Epic or whatever. And the people are like, is this like the last one? Like, not at all. But you can't get out of their head. Eric, you have had to run into that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the second you mentioned this is just like something, and sometimes that's an easy shorthand. You know, if you're rather than explaining the complicated rule set, you can say this is just like the draft. Like, what is it? The mini golf designer that I was talking about recently. The drafting is just like King Domino, and if people know that, then you're golden. But that is the only part of that is the same, and so you can get into trouble. But you also get into trouble when 3 out of the 4 people that you're talking to understand that reference and immediately get it, and the last one's like, oh, sorry, I don't know. And then you have to loop back around and explain the whole thing anyway, so why did you go down that path?
Yeah, and then they feel left out.
Dan, what kind of person is the worst student of learning a game?
It's the one that feels like they have to ask a question after every rule.
This is a good top 10.
Or it's the one that isn't even paying attention, but they're the first one to ask questions once you start playing the game.
Oh, that's high up there for me. I also have the assistant teacher who, you know how Dan mentioned there's those little rules you don't tell people? This person's like, oh no, he didn't explain every rule to you. Let me do that before the explanation's over. I would like to interrupt now and explain an edge case here, and I'm going to stick in some strategy tips to help you all out.
That's the worst. That when you get derailed like that, and questions will sometimes do that too. You'll be in the middle of explaining something, and someone will say, so why would I want to do this? And you have to be like, let's not talk about that yet, because that's just going to lead me down this path. Or what is this for, that holding up a piece that you haven't even mentioned yet? Be quiet for now. We'll get there.
I know. Sometimes I feel like I'm back in high school. I don't want to treat people like kids, but it's like, come on, I will turn this game around if you ask one more question.
Put that down, please. Let's not talk about it yet. So when I had structured the question the way I did, I was going to focus on something that you guys had talked about, was starting with the goal. That the first thing when you're talking about the game is, what is the end point? And then you can work backwards from that, so that they can always keep that in mind while you're talking about all the nitty-gritty mechanisms and stuff. Okay, I'm doing this because I'm trying to make wine, and I'm doing this because I'm trying to sell to earn points. Okay, that all makes sense, and I can see the end goal. And if you leave that out, I've certainly gone through teaches where I've explained all of the mechanisms, and then I forget to explain what the scoring is at the end. We actually start the game, and oh yeah, by the way, here's how you get points at the end.
And if possible for me, when I'm taught a game, I want to know how points are scored, but I also kind of like to know what is points. You know, you say, oh, this card gives you 3 points. Is that good or not? I remember the first time I played Agricola, a beggar makes you lose 3 points if you don't feature people. The very first time I played it, I was like, psst, I don't care. They can starve. I'll take -3 points. That loses you the game almost. 3 points is a lot. Yeah. But I didn't know that going into it. You know, sometimes that matters. In Ticket to Ride, if you don't do a 3-point ticket, that might be part of your strategy.
Yeah. Well, and if the game lends itself to the theme helping you teach it, of course, that it always works to help use the theme if it actually does help teach the games. But some games have themes that are so pasted on, it actually detracts from trying to use it to teach the game. So then you just leave it out. It just depends on the game.
Right. Someone's like, why are we pirates again? Never mind. You just are a pirate. Don't worry about it. Flip over some more cards.
Cultivating dreams? Yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah.
So, Tom, I want to know, how do you handle, or how should people handle, when you've told them a rule and they don't believe you? So let's say you're playing a game. Let's just call it No Thanks.
This feels very pointed.
I didn't make it up, and
let's just say you played it one way your whole life, and then you realize you've been playing it wrong. And then how do you handle that?
I would go to the person who I would say the convention that I'm at is named after and go by them, because that would be the highest authority, I think, in the area at that point.
And what they say goes. It doesn't matter what the rules say.
All right, well, let's jump to some questions here. We have a few questions that are pre-programmed by Eric that we take. We can go online, and Eric puts up a thread each time we do this, about a week beforehand. But if you're in chat right now, you can ask some questions, and we'll get to some of them once Dan answers these. What's the first question, Eric?
This one comes from KK, who says, I would like to hear what weight of games Dan likes to play best and why. Seems like he mostly showcases lighter games on his channel. Also, he's a big fan of deduction like me, so yay. What's your favorite genre and weight of game there, Dan?
Genres. My favorite is deduction and negotiation and economic. Those are probably my 3 favorite style games. From a weight perspective, oh man, I've listened to Tom talk about BGG weight many times, and I'm pretty much on the same page as him. I have a thing that I call the depth to complexity ratio. I think games can be extremely deep, and they don't necessarily have to be complex. And I think those games are way harder to design, develop, and make than just throwing a bunch of mechanisms to fix problems. So I tend to like things to be very streamlined, where there is a ton for your brain to chew on, but there's not a lot of overhead. I'm all about streamlining. So I tend to like games that are around an hour, but I don't mind playing. When I played, when Seventh Continent first came out, we would sit down and not stand up for 6 or 7 hours at a time. I have no problem playing long games. I just don't want them to feel long. So I tend to, for me, and I'm mostly teaching newer people a lot of times, if it's longer than 60 minutes, for every 30 minutes after that, the game has to be a step function better for me to continue to get that game to the table. We're busy. Even Tom, I know Tom doesn't play the longer games like he used to.
I like playing long games, but you have to be in that right mood and that right mindset. And yes, I just think there's something more enjoyable about pulling out 3. When I don't know why, when I'm on my third 2-hour game and I look over and those people are still playing that 6 hours game, I'm like, heh, heh, heh. I don't know why.
No, I feel the same way.
Even if they're having fun, it's legitimate. I should not feel that way. I just do. I feel like I accomplish more. But also, if a game's bad and it's shorter, and I don't even mean that
quickly.
A game that I like can sometimes go sour for whatever reason. You lose. There's a bad player. 2 hours is a more palatable way to handle that than 6.
Well, our group, we love negotiation. We play Nothing Personal, for example, one of my favorite games. And it never takes us less than 3 hours. And we're fine with that because we know it going in and we all love the game. Again, the mechanisms don't get in the way in that game, right? It's low overhead. So, and speaking of deduction, Tom, going back to when I was a kid, because I know you like these things too. You talk about those little logic puzzles a lot. Sally's older than Bob, and Bob is shorter than Tim. Then what? All those things. When I was a kid, I would literally sit in my bed almost every night with those little logic puzzle books and just do them before I'd go to sleep at night. So that's why I love deduction. Clue is my favorite game as a kid because of that.
I like them, but I think nowadays the one I like the most are the paint by numbers boxes things where it's rows and columns and it tells you how many groups.
Nonogram.
Is that what those
I've been
are called?
playing that on an app recently. Yeah, that's
I know. It showed up in Facebook. I started playing it as an app, and I was like, ooh. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time on that. That's pure logic, and I like it. Even games like, even Sudoku is pretty much logical.
Yeah. But I think weight is rubbish. I think there's plenty of games that have a lower BGG rating than heavier games, but I feel like those games actually are more weighty because there's more to think about.
A long time ago, I know you said Mr. Jack was one of your favorites. Is that still very high up on your list?
The New York version is still. I did a top list last year, and it was my number 2 game of all time, New York, because that is definitely the most complex of them because there's so much you can do with. You build the board. Every game is so different. That one's that's a very light game, but again, it's a brain burner. It's built by a chess master, Bruno Cathala, right? It feels very chessy with special abilities, but again, that one's pretty light. But yeah, I'd say medium weight is probably about my favorite. But you're right, Tom. I'd rather play 3 1-hour games than a 3-hour game most of the time.
Yeah,
unless it's one of my favorites. Right, not unless it's one of my favorites.
All right. Well, James says, I'm sure that you, like all content creators, get many mixed responses to your reviews. How do you assess who you should listen to, what you should maintain, and what you should change about your videos?
I think, it used to really bother me at first, Tom, when I was on the Dice Tower. The internet's obviously, it's a great thing. There's a lot of good things you can do for it, but there's a lot of people out there that just want to put their negativity everywhere they go. And when I first started doing this, it would ruffle my feathers. I think as long as the feedback isn't personal, I think you can always learn something from it, unless they're coming at you. Those are the ones that I will just discredit right away. But anything that's said, if they're saying it, then someone thinks it, and then you got to weigh am I hearing this more than once, or is this just way off in left field, right? And so, but it can get to you. But then after a while, you get tough skin. Tom, you probably have the toughest skin of anybody. You have to, because
no one has ever criticized me, so I wouldn't know. No, I always give people the advice, listen to everybody, but don't listen to anybody. By that I mean, try to look at all the comments and look at them as a general whole. So if you see a lot of people saying, hey, there's a problem with this and that, fine. But one person who writes a 6-page thing about why you're wrong about something, and it's just one data point, Also, you might like doing something. I mean, there's a lot of comments and videos about my stupid hats. Maybe they are stupid, but I'm still going to wear it. I just don't care.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard to ignore those more vociferous ones that seem to be very impassioned. You get like a sea of, oh, this is great, really enjoying this, and then somebody writing that dissertation about why they dislike what you're doing. It just seems disproportionately more impassioned that they dislike something that you're doing, and it is harder, I think, to ignore those more impassioned comments than it is, a bunch of people that are just like, this is great, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So John, how much of the negative things you get are like legitimate versus personal type of things?
Probably a lot. That's fine. I don't mind. I don't mind when people. Usually, it's either I didn't play the game enough. So that's because most of the complaints are about negative reviews. So you don't play the game enough to properly understand it. That's the number one complaint.
Mm.
So Josh has a question about your health kick, which is, as we discussed, probably not much of a kick. You try and stay a very fit individual, Dan. Josh says, I'm curious to how Dan got into working out and how he stays loyal to the gym, stays on his track record.
Well, I mean, we just talked about when I was a kid. It was just when you play sports, you're constantly working out, right? So it's just been a part of my life since I was younger. And then as you get older, it is harder. But I just say, I think the thing that keeps it going, or what could keep it going for anybody, is you got to find something that you enjoy doing. And as you get older, different things. Like I used to like very high impact sports and stuff, but I'm getting older and it's a little hard to do that. So now I'm finding other things, like, in the last decade, I started doing triathlons and stuff, right? And then, so now I do mostly a lot of biking, but I also do strength training as well. You just got to find something that you like. But for me, it's always been a part of my life. And so it was just natural that even though I stopped playing sports, that it's just been there. It's just a constant. If I go like more than 2 or 3 days, which is very rare, without working out, I actually start to feel sick. Like it drives me down. I get tired easy, this and that. It actually helps you. It almost sounds like backwards, but like when you tire yourself out, you actually have more energy throughout the day, which is it's counterintuitive. I just think if there's people out there that are like, how can I get on something? Just find something you like. And what other people are doing, whatever's hot on TikTok or social media, doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be it for you. Just find something that you like doing. And you'll be much more apt to stick with it, whatever it may be. My dad, I called him the other day. What are you doing? Oh, I'm driving my car. I'm going to go to the mall and walk. And of course, I got to tease him and give him crap just because that's what I do to my dad, right? And I'm like, Dad, why don't you get on a bike? There's some trails behind your house. He's like, no, I like doing my mall walk. That's great. He found something that he likes. Perfect. That's all you got to do.
Are there any sports or activities that you've always wanted to try, but you haven't had a chance to?
I don't think so. I think I've tried everything I've wanted to. From a sports perspective,
Eric. He has. There's nothing left to see.
Okay. No, there's some like fringe stuff. Like, so pickleball is kind of like new and hot now, and the people in my neighborhood play this pickleball. It's kind of like tennis, but with a wiffle ball.
Yeah.
And they play in the street. Also, that slam ball thing that kind of looks like volleyball with a net in the middle. That looks like fun. I'd like to do that. Like, those are some ones that I would like to try, actually.
Yep. Ever tried any obstacle course training?
No, but that sounds like fun.
I'm just seeing you on Ninja Warrior. That's what we'll
I'm
talk
too
about.
old, man. I'm getting old. It gets harder every year.
Let's stop talking about the old stuff here. All right. Dan, some questions from chat. First of all, we have, what saxophones do you own? And do you own any clarinets? I'm not sure why the clarinet thing got in there, but all right.
They're woodwinds.
I do not own a clarinet. I own a Yamaha soprano, YTS 475. I own a Yamaha Custom 82Z unlacquered alto, which when I went to Japan, I was at a wafer fab doing stuff, but oddly enough, in the same building where the wafer fab was where they actually created the Yamaha pianos and the saxophones. And I got a tour, and I got to see them hand hammering in bells in the same exact factory that my saxophone came from, which I thought was just awesome. And I also own a tenor Selmer Reference 54, which is a newer version of an exact replica of the 1954 Mark VI from Selmer, which is the most sought-after horn for tenor players. It gets really nerdy. Like, people will be like, what's your serial number? Like, it's just as nerdy as game stuff if you get into it. So altos, tenor, soprano. I own one of each. I don't have a baritone. I kind of always did want one, but they're huge and they're expensive.
So have you ever done a video where you're playing all 3 parts and you do the multi-track video thing? That's all the rage, I hear.
Who did I do that for? I think that was the one I did for Rich Summer, actually.
Okay.
Because he had that cool, like, Austin Powers sounding intro, and there were 3 different saxophones. So I did. I think I recorded myself doing all 3, and I put them all together, and Tom hated it.
I didn't hate it. I just said cool. It was nerdy. All right. Okay, speaking of music, though, Nick says, why does it seem so difficult to design a good game based on music? I also would like to know the answer to this question.
Well, Tom, I watched your review the other day for
Lord of the Chords.
Lord of the Chords.
Yes. It's hard because there's, as you say, to actually like really get the theme going, there's a bit of a learning curve just in general, right? I mean, like there's a lot of theory in music. I mean, I guess you could do it just light with genres and stuff. It is hard though, because it's quite technical in many ways. Unless you just want to do, what's this one over here I got? Oh, the Cotton Club, 1937 Cotton Club. Have you played that one, Tom?
I have not.
That came out last year.
Yeah. That's much more thematic though. It's not really talking about music itself. It's a music venue.
Yeah, so that's the thing is, I think it's easier if you're doing something like that because then you don't have to get into the minutia of like music theory. If it's just like,
well, I don't care if a game has music theory or if it's about music notes. If it's about just getting a band together, I would be okay.
Like Trollfest. Have you played
Not
Trollfest?
A band. Yeah, but okay. So every time I meant brass band as God intended, but yeah, I get. It's always how to do your own rock band. There's like 20 card games on that. But putting together orchestral music or stuff like that I think it's fascinating. And there's a couple games that tackle it, and everyone else is worried about building the castle. The king has enough castles. Play a piece of music for him. All right.
But yeah, if a game with a music theme does come out, I'm obviously like you, Tom. Just gravitated right to it just because of theme alone.
All right. Well, people are not asking many board game questions. So someone says, since Dan is a biker, does he think e-bikes are cheating?
It depends. I mean, if you're just out there usually going a lot, it depends on the bike. Some bikes will just go without pedaling. Of course, that's cheating. Other bikes, you actually have to pedal or it does not engage, and it's just to assist. But I mean, there's all different reasons. You might be starting your adventure on biking, and you know what? When you run a marathon, you don't just start with 26 miles, right? You start with I'm going to walk 1 minute and run 1 minute, right? And you got to start somewhere. So if that's going to help you get on the bike,
that does not work. Me and my wife started doing that, and it basically worked. I was like, "We're walking, it's fun," and then the thing would say, "Time to run," and I was like, "I hate you." And we would run, and I was in hate mode, and then we go back to walking, and I was like, "Cool." Then it'd be like, run again. And after a while, I was like, you know what? Let's just walk. Then we don't have to do the part I hate.
I think you've learned something about yourself.
I did run a half marathon in that Galloway run-walk method where you run 5 minutes, walk 1. And I did it. I still did it in sub 2 hours. Granted, this was 7 years ago, much younger. But it does work. The run-walk does work. You don't fade at the end. Anyway, I don't feel like e-bikes is cheating. I think if it gets you on the bike and it gets you outside, more power to you, man. I mean, if you're in a race, obviously, It's a little cheating.
All right, last question here from Tommy. What's your favorite game based on music?
Ooh, I don't know. I was going to ask you the same thing, actually, Tom.
Too bad, because the question was asked to you. So.
Oh, you don't have one either? I don't know. I don't even know.
Eric says that electronic device game, whatever that's called.
Oh yes, Drop Mix by far.
Oh, Drop Mix. Oh.
Drop Mix is amazing. Oh my gosh, I know people just think it's
the game is terrible. It's a cool device.
Yeah, that's a toy.
Dude, I have every expansion for that game that was ever made. By the way, they don't make it anymore. They don't make any expansions. And yes, just playing DJ is just the most fun thing ever. But I will tell you, the head-to-head mode stinks. The cooperative party game is fun, and then now there's like a solo Tetra-style version puzzle game that they made for it. That one's good too. But the party game's my favorite. It actually is fun in that way. But yes, that would say, yeah, for sure. Thanks for reminding me that was a musical game. That one's so fun.
Yes. but that's more of an app than anything else, I think.
Well, no, you're playing cards from your hand
Yeah,
strategically.
I like the Sashi and Sashi trick taker. Take the A chord.
Mm-hmm.
That has just enough musical theory that it works with the theme. You're changing keys and changing what the high cards are. But it doesn't get overwhelmed by music theory, which is where, as we said, a lot of those games get stuck.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wanted to like that one more, Eric, but it felt very random. All right, well, we're on games now. So let's talk about games. Dan, well, Eric, explain how this works again, because I always forget.
We call this last segment 1 and 1. We talk about 2 games, one that we've played recently that we've been excited about, and one that is on our horizon that we will get to play soon and are psyched to talk about. So, Dan, why don't you go first?
Recent game that I am in love with. I don't think I've loved a new game this much, and I can't remember how long. It is from Arcade Wonders. It's actually part of the Dice Tower Essentials line. Foundations of Rome has blown my mind. Emerson Matsuuchi, I am calling him the master of elegance, and that term gets thrown around a lot. This game is so darn elegant. Oh, that's exactly what I'm talking about. This game has so much interaction, has so much depth, unlimited replayability with the way you could build off yourself, you could build off other people, the order and the way the cards come up. You start building up with the expansions too, forget about it. This game has a ton of depth. 3 choices on your turn. It sounds like, oh, this is just easy. It's light. Yeah, rules, it's light, not a lot of overhead. Oh my gosh, this game's amazing. It is my game of the year by far right now so far. I know the year's early, but it's going to take something. I can't imagine it getting knocked off for me. This game is unbelievable. It's sad that it's kind of sold out everywhere and you can't really get it, and I would really love to see them come out with like a mass market version that's just tiles so that more people can enjoy the game. But oh my gosh, I'm in love with this game. Like, oh my gosh. It's like Emerson took like Century Spice Road, Acquire, and what's the other one? Put them all together. What's that? Oh, Suburbia. And kind of put them all together. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Foundations of Rome. Oh, it's the most expensive game I've ever bought, actually, because I played it and I couldn't not get the Sundrop version. And after shipping, it was $290. And you know what? It's worth every penny because I'll be playing this game for the rest of my life. That's how much I love it. That's the most I've ever spent.
And no one will ever steal it because they can't carry it out of the house.
When it came, I was like, man, I thought Mechs vs. Minions was the heaviest pounds game I had, but that's only 14. This one's 20 pounds. Literally, it's crazy.
When they showed me the box, I thought they were kidding. When they showed me the first box, I was like, So that's just a big box for display purposes, right? No? Oh.
Listen, I watched your reviews. I watched Bonacore gloat about it, and I'm like, it can't be that good. If Bonacore likes it, it's got to be just okay.
Right? That's a reasonable assumption for you to have made.
But I got to tell you, he was spot on because I think he liked it the most out of everybody in that review, and I like it as much as him, if not more. Like, oh man.
I need to play this at Dice Tower East.
You haven't played it yet?
Not yet.
Oh my goodness.
I've been in places where it's been set up, but the table's always busy, and I haven't made it a dedicated priority to play it, and I need to do so at the next big event.
Well, I've overhyped it now. Now that's the problem. Is now people
live up to it.
Like Ark Nova. By the time I got a chance to play it, I was like, that's really good. I don't understand that it's that good, but it's really good. Like, how do you rise up? What's it at? Like 12 now on BGG? But that's crazy to me. Anyway, so
what's on your horizon, Dan?
Actually, a game that Tom just recently reviewed, and I got a question to him about this. This is called Sniper Elite, right, Tom?
The board game, but yes.
The board game, not the video, because it's based off a video game, right? It's a hidden movement. I love hidden movement. I love deduction style things. This I don't have it yet. It's hopefully coming soon, but this looks awesome. I love hidden movement games. It seems like that whole it's got that mechanism where you're putting different things in the bag that are going to change how successful you are. That happens over the game. It just looks awesome. It looks so cool. I'm dying to play this one. And Tom, I got a question for you. Last year, you said Mind Management was your favorite hidden movement game, and after this review, you said this was now your favorite. So it eclipsed all those, including Mind Management for you, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I like Mind Management. It's man, they're really different though.
They are very.
This is more straight deduction. Well, so is mind management. This one, I don't know. I like this one better.
Anytime you can get Tom to stop talking, you've asked a good question.
It's impressive. I'm annoyed though because I just bought mind management and hasn't arrived yet. And
it's good.
It's
good.
I think you would like this one better. Sniper Elite has a little bit of combat mechanism in which I like. I think you would like mind management better.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I'm not huge on combat either, but just that whole system seemed really cool. So I'm super excited for Sniper Elite.
All right, Eric, what about you?
Well, I've always been waiting for a game based on the classic Alfred Hitchcock film Rear Window, and finally,
intellectual property.
The game has arrived. Prospero Hall and Funko Games made this Rear Window game. It's a deduction game, Dan.
When did this come out?
It's like in the next week or so. I think it releases this week. And it is, you've got one player playing the director, and they're sitting behind a little screen, and they have 4 apartments that have 4 different residents. So you've got like, I think 8 possibilities. There's 12 different attributes, of which 4 have been put down behind the screen, 1 for each apartment. Although they've also added into that mix, amongst the 12 attributes, is murder as a 13th. And so you shuffle them all up, put them down on the 4 apartments, and then the director is giving clues to the other players. It's sort of like Mysterium, and you've got these cards that can be interpreted in multiple ways. They're placed out on the apartments, and then the other players guess. We think that so-and-so's in this apartment. We think their attribute is this, except, and if there is no murder, the director is trying to get across the fact that what all 8 attributes are. But if there's murder, they're trying to get across most of the attributes, but hide the fact that there's a murder. So it's like a semi-cooperative deduction game.
That sounds amazing.
I'm actually impressed. I thought that no one was going to be interested in this game, but I think it actually works as a light Mysterium-style deduction, and I'm excited to play more complicated tiles. There's like very basic ones in the easy version of the game, but then there's ones that are like dating another person. So you add in a 5th resident or a 6th resident if you have enough of them, and it can get really complex. So I'm excited to play more of that.
Oh my God. Tom, have you played this?
It has gone to game night 8 times in a row and come back on the bag. Another game keeps butting in front of it. Maybe tomorrow will be the night.
Is that another Target release for them?
I don't know distribution. I think it's wide release.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
but again, it should be hitting stores this week, I think.
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to look that up. That is right up my alley.
Cool. And then on the horizon is there was a series of puzzle games, escape room style games. One was called The Curious Elevator of Mr. Hinks, and one was, I think, The Curious Staircase or some other staircase. They were very low production, although pretty ingeniously put together, escape room games. And they've released a new set of like puzzle newsletters called the Hinks Gazette. And they've clustered all these together. They were an online thing for a while, but this is now a packaged version that has some props and some cool stuff. I'm excited to do some puzzling.
Where is that? Because I looked up this Hinks Gazette, and I could only find the online thing.
Okay, well, this is a new packaging of the online thing. They've turned it into a physical object. It's from Bluefish Games. It may not be on Board Game Geek, so that may be why you
It's not, actually. How did you? Where does it exist? Is that a prototype? Is this a Kickstarter preview?
It's got like all this. It's a real product. From where I'm looking for a website to find it more easily, but this is not just a prototype. This is the real thing that they released.
All right. Well, that sounds interesting. All right.
I'm excited.
I'm going to start with my one I'm looking forward to first because I haven't got it yet, and that's XMen United. Seriously, Simon, I'm not joking now. All right, Z just got his copy. Why do I not have my copy yet? Come on now. Come on. Okay, I'm done with that.
Because I got 12 waves.
Yeah, I'm in like wave of 13 is what I heard. Anyhow. So here's the thing. I want to talk about this game. I have not yet done a review of it because I fear I'm missing something. And this game is called Paint the Roses. It's from North Star Game. And shockingly, it's another deduction game. Dan, did you play this when it was on Kickstarter?
I have not played it yet. I've been waiting for this one.
Okay, because I'm telling you right now, I hate it. No, but I don't want people to take that as review. I went and looked at all the comments. Everyone is saying this is the most amazing game ever. And I played it multiple times, and I've hated it multiple times. This is a game in which you are, as a group, cooperatively placing tiles on a board, and you need to fill the board with tiles. If you do so, you win. But every time you put a tile on a board, you have like this secret thing, because the queen is mad and wants roses painted. She wants roses to be red, so you're painting roses to be red or whatever. That's the theme. Okay, the theme's gone. What you are trying to do is put different combinations on the board. So if I might want red next to yellow, or an easy one is you want 2 color combos. You have a code that no one knows. It might be red red or red yellow or yellow purple. A medium one, you have shape combos because there's 4 different suits out there, and it might be you might have a color or a suit. I might have clubs diamonds, or diamonds hearts, or diamonds diamonds, or I might have yellow yellow, yellow red. And then the hard is mixes those. I might need a yellow next to diamond, and the number goes up pretty large. So everyone has a code. You put out a tile on the board on your turn, and then everyone puts a cube if that tile next to the tiles it's next to matches one of those. Cool. So far I'm in. By looking at the cubes people put down, I can go, all right, you put 2 cubes on that yellow tile and it's next to 2 reds. It's pretty obvious you're yellow red. Okay, so far so good. I like all that. Here's what I don't like about the game, and this is where I need people to tell me what I'm missing about it, is that each turn, when you put the tile out, everyone puts the things out, you must guess somebody's thing. And the game comes with sheets. You can keep track, although I don't know how they expect you to not run out of sheets in like 2 games. But, you must guess somebody's. If you're correct, you get points on it. One that they go from like 2 to 4, and that's how far you move your score marker. Then the red queen starts chasing you. She's on this track chasing you. She starts moving 1, but the farther you go, suddenly she starts moving 2. The farther you go, she starts moving 3. If you guess and you're incorrect, then she doubles her movement, and if she catches you, you lose. I hate the scoring for this so much because it encourages you to only do simple, easy ones. Only one person at the table is allowed to have an easy code at any time, but you always should. And you should always take medium codes. There's no benefit to doing the hard codes because they might be 1 movement more than a medium one. And the numbers, the whole scoring thing feels like it's off. There's another whole section to the game with card play, which I have not messed with yet, although I read the rules and looked at it, and it seems like it adds more bad things and more good things. But I am mind-boggled on the scoring for this. I don't get it, and neither do the people at Dice Tower, although to be fair, I thought them the game, and maybe I'm missing some major thing. I've read the rules multiple times.
So I thought the point spread was a little bit more obvious, so that I know when I played, I had to go to the harder ones in order to get enough distance from the queen. So now everybody should be taking mediums and hards, no more easies, because we need to get more distance on that.
Yes, but if you're wrong, so when you put one out, and I'll say, oh, I just eliminated 7 choices, but there is, 32 choices? There are so many times in the game where I was like, well, we have to guess someone's. We're going to guess Eric. We've done pretty well at deducing it. It's down to 50-50. That's still 50-50. If we're wrong, the queen might move 8 spaces and we've lost. I don't know. I was really thrown off by that.
That's tension.
But not fun. Deduction for me is trying to figure something out, not being forced to guess. Being forced to guess. Yeah. I only like doing that when you're playing like Guess Who or some game and the other person's about to get it and you're like, all right, I'm going to guess and hopefully I'm right. And I've done that even in like Sleuth, Dan. Sleuth is a great deduction game. I'll guess near the end of Sleuth sometimes if I think someone else, they're like, I think I got it. I'm like, well, I'm guessing now.
Yep.
That's different. Being forced to guess isn't fun for me.
You are forced to guess. So if that's your primary disagreement with the game, I don't have anything to tell you.
So you played this, Eric?
I have, yeah.
And you like it?
I thought it was okay. I wasn't completely blown away by it. Like you said, a bunch of people saying this is the best thing ever. I don't think I was quite there. I actually found it a little too
I'm really
easy.
starting to dislike Kickstarter hype, because when a new Kickstarter game comes out, all I can find is people screaming about how amazing it is. I'm like, but did no one have any problems with it? And in the case of this, I feel like I'm muddling through. Like, come on, somebody's got to have disliked it.
You think that's because they spent money on it and they're so excited that it finally showed up that they're just going to say it's amazing?
No, I don't think that. I mean, I think that works in your psyche to some degree, but I don't think that people say it and they don't believe it. I think it just helps you believe it.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, anyway, I don't know. I'm trying to. I'm gonna give it another whirl, because this is one of those ones that I really wanted to like. I like the theme of Alice in Wonderland. I like Deduction. I like North Star. Feels like it should be a win-win-win, and there's something I'm missing with it. Well, Dan,
on that note, thank you for coming by. If people want to find out more about your videos and your channel in general, where's the best hub to go to find out more about you?
Probably just GameboyGeek.com.
Sorry, say it again, Dan. I was being a dork.
It's so great to get the band back together again, isn't it?
No,
it's GameboyGeek.com. You can just get all the places I'm at there.
don't type a wrong thing. You'll end up at a weird site. Shows you old ROMs that you find.
Yes. There are still Kickstarters for Game Boy games out there. I get occasional emails. They're like, we made this new game for the Game Boy. Who has a functional Game Boy at this point?
Also, the Switch has killed the Game Boy.
The Switch is so good.
All right, Dan. Well,
thanks for having me, guys. It was great to talk to you guys again. It's always great to hang out with you guys.
Great to see you.
All righty. Well, I'm going to do this right if it kills me. All right, folks. So thank you. So until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Eric Summerer.
We'll see you soon at the table.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you again in 2 weeks when our guest will be designer Elizabeth Hargrave. At the Table is produced by Tom and me with assistance from Roy Kennedy, Wendy Yee, and Chris Yee. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Fear of Hoagies brought to you by Subterror. And support for everything at the Dice Tower comes from viewers and listeners like you. Reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter, or to Tom at Dicetower.com or Eric at Dicetower.com. Until we see you again, from all of us at the table, have fun gaming.